idols of Baghdad back to our arms, bring them home.
Bring them home, bring them home.
Welcome to Peace Now. My name is Trudy Quaife. I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We're a local organization of friends and neighbors. We've been advocating for peace and justice for over a decade. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by Mary Finneran.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, Mary.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let me tell you a little bit about Mary. She's a local activist, a longtime activist. She's very well known for her work to prevent hydrofracking in New York State. And I think that's one of the biggest issues she's working on. But she's also an activist in many other issues as well, including single-payer health care. She's a peace activist and many other environmental issues. So there's a lot to talk about today. And we'll get started with talking about some of the issues. But first, I'd like to ask you, Mary, could you tell us a little bit about how you became an activist and why you became an activist?
Well, I was always kind of aware, kind of concerned, saw things going on, was very concerned about the nuclear when I was young. And I did a little bit of activism not quasi-activism during graduate school in the early 90s, when the first desert storm started, and I started to become aware of women's violence against women. I was in some art shows about those two issues and few protests about the Desert Storm, but it really wasn't until the second Iraq War and all of that leading up to it that I started to get concerned, and a couple of things happened. I became aware of Dennis Kucinich running for president. I liked what he had to say, and he made me aware of some things. Also, 9/11 was kind of like a wake-up call, but it was still a couple years after that I started getting active. And then when I sold my house and moved into a property and didn't get network TV for a month, and all of a sudden my brain seemed to go into shift. And when I started seeing, and we decided not to get it for a while, and then when I saw it later, I realized, wow, look at all these things that they're saying that I just thought wasn't so. And I depended a lot on online news. And then I started going to Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace meetings and events. And I really have to grant Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace for really making me an activist, bringing me into the activist fold. They had buses to different protests, and I started realizing how important that was. And so that's when I really started to become an activist.
Well, now you're a member of a lot of different organizations, including Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, also Frack Free Catskills, Frackbusters, PAWS, which is People of Albany United for Safe Energy, and Greene, Renewable Energy and Environmental Networks, which is short for Greene, or Greene is short for that
That's
organization.
the acronym.
Right. So which of those would you like to tell us a little bit more about? Which of those have you been most involved in?
Frack Free Catskills, Frackbusters are probably the two I've been most involved with lately. Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. Greene, I'm kind of disappointed. We had a great start last summer, but it just kind of faded after we got a good initiative for the village of Catskill to pass a no frack brine bill, and I'm trying to get that rejuvenated some. And could you repeat the question again?
Well, I was wondering which of those organizations that you're most involved with now and what kind of issues you're working on.
I'm most involved, both Frack Free Catskills and Frackbusters, and PAWS a little bit. Frack Free Catskills, we're working on the bomb trains. I'm also involved with the Pilgrim Pipeline, which is the alternative route for the fracked oil that's coming from the Bakken Shale. And they want to put that along the Hudson River and the Thruway. And so with PAWS kind of has me moving down. PAWS, which is the Albany group that's working against the bomb trains, they have us moving. I've been taking a lot of their impetus in using it down in Frack Free Catskills. They've had a lot of work done on that. The Pilgrim Pipeline is I'm kind of the representative for that group, for people to contact me if any surveyors have come to people's land who lives near the New York State Thruway. I'm hoping that they realize that they don't have to allow surveyors on their land. And so that's a good impetus for, well, that's just something I'm working on with the Pilgrim Pipeline.
Okay.
Frackbusters New York is my primary group, and we are working on trying to make fracking a crime, basically taking away the corporate charter of people who try to poison us, and it involves all the infrastructure. A lot of people are very happy and excited that no drilling has happened in New York yet, but New York is getting fracked in many other ways, via the pipelines, the gas pipelines, via the I forgot to turn it off. Via the waste. New York State is getting 30% of the waste from Pennsylvania. Traffic. There's a lot of gas traffic going on down in New York State, down on the Southern Tier Expressway. So even though we're not getting drilled, we are still getting a lot of the infrastructure. And that reminds me of another group that that is working on and Sane Energy Project. In conjunction with them, a lot of grassroots groups are working on building an infrastructure map, which will be introduced very soon so that people can see where all the action is going on, who exactly is working on a lot of the actions like the waste and the water withdrawals, all of the infrastructure that goes on with fracking. So we're real happy that we're going to be able to show this so that people can recognize it, know who to go to. A lot of people want to be active, a lot of people are concerned, but they don't know what groups to go to. They don't know who to connect with. So
that's true.
We're hoping that this project will help people know what grassroots are in their area or what groups they can connect with. Who can they just call to just ask questions? So.
Okay, well, let's back up a minute. Let's talk a little bit about hydrofracking and why you're opposed to it. Do you want to just give a little background on why you decided to make that one of your issues and why you are so opposed to it?
Well, one of the, if anybody wants to ever get a thumbnail description of gas drilling, hydrofracking drilling, they should see the first Gasland. The second Gasland is also good, but the first Gasland really gives a definitive idea for people to see. It's a little dated. There's some stuff that we know that's even worse, or stuff that we know that has come out since then, but it's a very good movie, and I really, Josh Fox has to be commended for that. Hydrofracking is an alternative means of extracting gas and oil. Actually, the Bakken Shale, the oil that's coming through the bomb trains, is all fracked as well. And what it is it's just a method where they put chemicals and sand down in the earth and break the rock. And this is 2 miles down. And one of the main concerns for me in the Marcellus Shale, where they're doing this down in Pennsylvania, is the Marcellus Shale is radioactive. So when they put the chemicals down, which I'm concerned about, and all the water, when it comes back up, it's also bringing all the natural salts and all the radioactivity from down there. Not all of it is radioactive, but there's enough to cause concern. And the salt is 30 times saltier than seawater. And we know if we just put salt, just road salt, on if it gets on your lawn, it can kill your lawn. And so what is this that is 30 times saltier going to do? Also, the water. One of my main concerns about fracking is that it's withdrawing between 3 and 8 million gallons of water every time they drill. And they can drill many times from one well. So every time they go down to frack, they're using 3 to 8 million gallons of water. And if you have, 10,000 wells going on, how much water is that? I would say it's billions upon billions of gallons of water that are being extracted now. California is currently going through one of the worst droughts since the 30s. And it's becoming a dust bowl, and they're very concerned about the water. I just read an article on that. But they don't mention that California is having fracking going on. And the oil and gas industry is demanding their rights to have water. There have been wars going on over the water down in Texas from the Ogallala aquifer. Tons of that water has been withdrawn, and it's really becoming depleted. So one of my main concerns is that we won't have enough water, and that's critical to life. Besides the fact, everybody's saying, oh, the water contamination, that is a huge concern. And we can't afford to have our aquifers, contaminated. But they're consuming so much water. That is, for me, it's equally as concerning, if not more so.
Plus, there's also air pollution issues as well.
And the air pollution, the emissions from the, which is another climate change thing, but the emissions from the compressor stations, the pipelines. They're putting through so many pipelines, and these are big pipelines now, 36 inches, and that's huge. And when these leak, they are leaking methane, and methane is between 20 and 25 times as bad as a greenhouse gas as CO2. It's C4H, I think. It's a different combination, but it's also a carbon chemical formula. So that's something to be concerned about regarding the climate change, which nearly everybody is saying that there is climate change going on. There's going to be a huge protest on September 21st just about climate change down in New York City. And
this program will probably not even be broadcast till after that date.
Oh, right.
So
I forgot.
So
thank you.
Hopefully that event will have been very well attended when people see this, and it will have been a great success.
Yeah.
You're from the western part of the state, which is really the heart of the rural area of New York State, where the fracking, if it's allowed, will probably do the greatest damage to the environment. I know people out there are pretty well organized. Would you want to talk about what's going on out there a little bit? I think here in the Albany area we think we're the center of all the activism, but I think in this case there's a lot going on.
Well, there's a lot of truly grassroots groups down in the southern tier, and the southern tier does get neglected. There's also Coalition to Protect New York is a group that's mainly based in the Finger Lakes region in the southern tier, and they're a huge group. CPNY is their acronym that can be Googled. People for a Healthy Environment in Chemung County, it kind of expands out of there, and they're another group that's very active. Frackbusters New York has a lot of people from the southern tier, and they've been basically going to county legislative meetings, trying to make people realize the southern tier is kind of split, but lately a Siena poll has said that 51% of the people down in the southern tier don't want fracking. So that's a good sign, because there's a very strong vocal group of people. And the thing with the southern tier that's going on now, especially where I'm from, Painted Post Corning area, there's a lot of fracking going on in Pennsylvania, and a lot of the people who work in the industry live in Corning and Painted Post. So you can't get rentals there. There's people that feel cowed. They feel afraid to speak out because there's so much of the industry there. And so Horseheads, New York has, oh shoot, I can't remember, but one of the main chemical companies is in Horseheads that produces the chemicals. So the people down there, they're having their battle, but it's this Coalition to Protect New York, People for a Healthy Environment, and also a lot of smaller groups. Spencer Van Etten has their own little group, and Gas Free Seneca is fighting really hard to keep the liquid petroleum gas, the propane and that comes out of drilling for gas. They want to store it in the caverns down on Seneca Lake, down in Watkins Glen, and they're fighting very hard to stop that. So Gas Free Seneca is another group, and they're all wonderful groups. So.
Well, good. Now, I remember one of the issues that you've mentioned to me a couple of times is that they're using the brine from this fracking on the highways. Can you give us a little information on that?
Well, the brine, which is the flowback, which is the liquid that comes back when they drill, and as I said before, it's 30 times saltier than seawater, so it's really handy for de-icing, but it's extremely toxic. Walter Hong of Toxics Targeting has a website that lists there's over 200 towns that have approved it to be used as de-icer. And so, but in here, and there's a lot of counties, Albany County being one, and the village, I think the city of Albany, either one or the other, have banned the use of brine. Ulster County has banned the use of brine. The village of Catskill, the city of, actually Onondaga County and the city of Syracuse, Buffalo, and Erie County have all banned the use of this brine. It's highly toxic. It's very likely radioactive. And now what they're doing, since they're being cut back on being able to use it so much on roads, they mix it with sawdust to make it solid. So it's going into the landfills. It's going into 4 or 5 landfills down in the southern tier as solid. And when they say solid, it only has to be 20% solid. So it's more like clam chowder. And the landfill issue is something that a lot of people don't know about. And at least 4 of the landfills are managed and or owned by Casella Industries, which is outside of Vermont. And that is a corporation that does a lot of waste management, but they're accepting a lot of the frack waste into New York State. And why should we be accepting waste into New York State when we're not getting any of the benefits of it? We're only getting the toxins. I don't think we should get it at all. I don't think Pennsylvania should be producing it. I think a lot of Pennsylvanians would agree. But why are we taking this waste in? C.C. Katchik had a waste bill on the docket in the Environmental Committee, but they didn't let it go on to the Assembly or the Senate. So it was kind of closed in the Environmental Committee, which I thought was a real shame.
Okay, time's going by quickly here. We've probably got about 12 or 13 minutes left.
Okay.
Before we leave hydrofracking, is there anything else you'd want to tell people about that we haven't covered?
Oh, there's just so much. I can, and I'll probably...
One thing I wanted to ask you about is I know initially these estimates of how much gas was going to be available with fracking was apparently very much inflated. And now it's turning out that maybe there's only half as much gas, or even less. So what do you think about that? And do you think that might work in our favor? Maybe they won't be so driven to go ahead with this fracking if it doesn't turn out to be quite so profitable?
For the present. Now, Chip Northrup and Lou Allstat and some other people have been really promoting this. Chip has a wonderful blog site, No Fracking Way, and you can Google that, Chip Northrup. He used to work for, I can't remember if it's Mobil or Exxon before they combined, but he was up there in the industry and has really spoken a lot. He's now talking about a lot of the corruption that's gone on because of it. But there's some contention regarding that. Not that they're not right about the amount of gas that might be there. For the present, it's not profitable. But once they start exporting this, once it starts going out, they will be going any which way they can. They're going to try to extract every last drop of gas and oil before the planet just can't give out anymore. And so for the present, I think it's not profitable enough for the big industries. But you will still have your wildcatters, the smaller companies who may be trying, and they will go around and they will tap and tap and tap and do the drilling, which causes the damage. And then when they don't get it, they'll just leave, they'll cap the well, but the damage is done. And possibly the contamination of the water, and they're still using water to do the testing. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing. It's, and we're not sure.
So we have to keep organizing, keep advocating, keep pressing the governor to make a decision in favor of banning hydrofracking.
Banning it at the very end, all of the infrastructure, taking it all out of here, because if we allow the pipelines to come through, and and the traffic and the water withdrawals, Painted Post won a lawsuit against Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, a little over a year ago. And then they lost it again on appeal, and there's another appeal out on that, but just for the extraction of water. We can't allow other states to benefit. Water is precious, and New York State has some of the best water in the world, much less in the country. So.
Okay. Let's move on to another topic. Let's talk a little bit about, it's a related topic, the oil trains. They're now running through Albany. Anyone who's driven down 787 has seen these oil trains backing up at the port. What do you think about that?
Well, it's any which way they can to get this product to market. It's not the trains I'm against so much. Trains are wonderful. I wish we had more passenger trains, but it's the cargo. It's very volatile. Bakken shale is extremely volatile oil. And also it's, so it's been exploding. I mean, Loch McAntique had a huge explosion, which I'm sure a lot of people already know about. The oil trains, it's all related. It's all oil and gas. It's all fossil fuels. We got to keep it in the ground. We've got to start going with alternatives. But the oil trains, where I teach in Coxsackie, New York, the trains come within like an eighth of a mile of the school complex. So it's a little, and it's on a blind turn. There's a lot of times when the trains are stopped because they have a double track there. Elsewhere there's not a double track very close by, so they stop so that they can have the train switch tracks. It's kind of scary. I'm a little scared, and it's running parallel. That they want to put the Pilgrim pipeline in parallel, and some people say, "Oh, well, that's better than the trains, isn't it?" And trains have more accidents. Pipelines have worse accidents. So neither is good. The trains are running all the way from Chautauqua County through Buffalo, Albany, and then down to New Jersey. They're hoping to export it if they can get, and Obama is pushing to have the moratorium lifted on being able to export crude oil. We can only export processed oil. And once they do that, the trains are probably going to be getting more.
Yeah.
They need to get this stuff out that they keep on drawing. They want to get this stuff out. And we want to just stop at the source.
Yeah.
So.
And
Sandy Stubing, I want to say, has just...
She is.
With Pause, you had her.
She's just great. She was one of my guests recently.
Yes, and she's fantastic.
She really is. She's a powerful force for good.
She really is. I like to give credit to the people who are, and I'd like to take 1 minute at the end to just credit a lot of different people.
All right. Well, we have less than 10 minutes left. Let me ask you this. If the U.S. had an energy policy that was really about energy independence, we'd really be developing wind and hydro and solar, and we'd be moving away from fossil fuels. Obviously, that's not happening. So... Why? And what do you think people can do about it?
Okay, I honestly believe, we have the technology, we have the know-how, and we have enough fossil fuel in storage that I believe we can stop this now. We can build the solar. There's a lot of solar coming in in a lot of different places. Lou Allstat, who I mentioned before, down in Cooperstown, he's getting the school district and the hospital there to go solar. And he used to work for Exxon. So he knows what we need to do. Wind power, a lot of people have a problem with the windmills, but they're because of some decimation to birds. Cats kill a lot more birds, and I'm a cat lover, as you know. But they're developing a lot of technology with that. There's places where they could put windmills. It won't be as decimating. There's a lot of geothermal and passive solar. If people can do nothing else, they can consider ways that they can do things more passively solar in their own house. It's a must. We can't afford it. The planet can't afford to keep on going on with this because we're going to burn up if we don't stop doing the fossil fuel extraction and killing the atmosphere. But anyway, I think.
Okay. You've been involved with a number of other issues as well, so let me just list a few of them here, and maybe you'd want to say a few words about some of them. I know you've been a really strong advocate for single-payer health care, and also you've been an advocate for funding of education. Being a teacher, you've really noticed the lack of funding in the public schools. You've been a tireless advocate for peace, and several other environmental issues that don't come to mind right now. So.
Single payer, it's a no-brainer. It is absolutely a no-brainer. Medicare for all. Did you ask me the source yet? Or?
Well, no, I asked you why you think they're important. And
I think single payer is important because everybody deserves the right to be taken care of. It's actually one of the UN declarations of human rights is that people have a right to being taken care of. The education system, they are putting so much on teachers and administrators too. So much extra work that I think the kids are being neglected. I think they are so data driven and then with the war machine, the military is basically the bodyguards for the corporations to continue doing what they want, and it's bodyguards for mainly resource extraction. And I think the cause behind all of this is corporate control. The corporations control too much. The corporations, the 1%, the rich versus the poor, they control far too much. Another area that I have been active in is the homeless network, the homeless people, and how much people seem to think that they're just that they're just trying to work off the system. They don't have enough. It's a lot of work to be poor. It's a lot of work to be homeless, and
pretty hard to get out of that situation
pretty hard
once you're in
to
it.
get out of that situation. This magazine, Adbusters, speaking of the corporate, they have the top 5 corporations that they think need to have their charters revoked. They actually gave it to GM because of the recent issue with the ignitions shutting off as people were driving, and I happen to have one of those cars too, so it took me months to get my ignition changed, and they still don't want me to attach my keychain. But there's also Pfizer. ExxonMobil is in there because of the fact that the climate change deniers, they put out as much propaganda as possible to deny that. So it's all connected.
It is.
It all comes down to profit over people. The drive to make money is the main thing it's really decimating our country and the world. And people have to start speaking up. It's not to stop, innovation. It's not to stop technology. It's not to stop people having a comfortable living and being able to make money. It's all about when profit is killing people.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and thank a few of the people that you mentioned, and if there's any particular website that you want to mention at this point, that would be good.
Okay.
But we're just about down to a minute here.
Okay. I'd like to thank people in Central New York and Coalition to Protect New York and Frackbusters, Jack Assant, Maura Stevens are doing wonderful work out there. Doug Cushon. I'd like to, and so look those people up. I'd like to thank Sandy Stubing. I'd like to thank Joan Walker and Sue Rosenberg with Frack Free Catskills. I'd like to thank Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace again, and Trudy Crafe and Joe Lombardo for their work to stop this bodyguard from. And I think that's about it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, you'll have to come back another day because there's so much more we could have covered. Thank you for being here, and thank you
for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you all for joining us. Please join us for future episodes where we'll be talking about how the wars have affected our economy and the criminal injustice system. Thank you very much.
Peace.
Bring them home, bring them home, bring our parents, our children home, from the dust of Afghanistan back to our arms, bring them home.
Bring them home, bring them home, bring our sons and our daughters home, from the ghettos of Baghdad back to our arms.